We're living in a digital world where classrooms have screens.
Welcome to the Integrate This EdTech podcast, the go-to digital space for educators and tech enthusiasts. I'm your host, David Berner, along with my co-host, Jeremy Miller.
Last week, we featured our first ever Integrate This EdTech draft, where David and I each selected our top 5 tools for the classroom to help classroom instruction or student learning. So we're asking you, our viewers, to vote for whose team has a better lineup. Voting closes real soon, May 6th, so be sure to cast your ballot using the Google form. There's a link to it in the QR code that you see here on the screen. And we will announce which team, mine, that wins the first ever draft contest on our episode, which will air next week. Today, however, we're shifting gears here a little bit, and David and I are going to be exploring the AI tool Diffit and its uses in the classroom and for teachers.
As always, you can find more of our content on Integrate This YouTube page. We love hearing about any tips you'd like to share with us and others, so please leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to connect with us by subscribing, liking our videos, and following at Integrate This on X and Instagram.
So today, as we jump in and explore the great uses of Diffit for teachers, I want to start out here using a resource that I found from Diffit themselves that they share out for teachers that are using their platform. It is another great AI tool, and like other AI tools that are designed for education, it really puts those guardrails up and really focuses on the content and the data that it pulls from and trains with in order to create the best possible product for teachers to use to help them make their jobs more efficient, to help them save time, to maybe help give them a little bit of a creative boost into their lessons that they're planning, and also is going to give them tons of different resources that they're able to integrate in the types of lessons that they're going to use with their students. And so as you can see from this document, which is going to be linked in our show notes, so please check that out. Whatever you're doing, Diffit has got you covered. They talk about how and we're going to demonstrate for you how you can take something from beginning with a standard, or maybe you start with a grade level that you teach, and let Diffit create some of those resources for you on just about any topic. But because teachers are still the experts, they're still the content providers for their students. So therefore, they have the ability to easily customize and edit anything that Diffit creates. And we're going to demonstrate some of those tools that makes it very easy to do, including its great integrations with Google and Microsoft products. And then it's going to, once it kind of shows you some of the things that it pulls together, you're able to go into kind of like their toolkit and find out just the right activities that you want to be able to use with your students. They have all sorts of pre-made templates of different sorts of worksheets or activities. They've got lots of different assessment type questions, DOK, multiple choice, all sorts of different things that are just going to be easy to be able to then send out to your students to be able to use in whatever sort of LMS kind of platform that you're using. To get to Diffit, you head to diffit.me. And if you haven't signed up with an account, you can do that very quickly using your Google, your Microsoft single sign-on credentials, and it will take you right into the platform itself. And so David and I are going to explore a couple of different parts here, but I'm going to jump into Diffit and show you some of the things right away when you get there. So when I get to Diffit here, you're going to see that there's not a lot on this page to distract you with, because I think what Diffit would really like to do is get you to jump into its generative features right away. And as you can see, I did have a premium account, but it ended. So everything that you're going to see that I'm doing here today are going to be those things that you're going to be able to do for free right away using Diffit. So There is the spot right here that is start new. And again, that's that blank page there. But it also recalls your search history and what you've generated previously in the My Resources. So if I go to that tab, you can see there's a few other things that I have searched for in the past under this account. But I'm going to begin here from the start new, and I'm going to begin with this tab, literally anything. And I know David is going to talk about these other tabs that are on here, but I'm going to create a new search here. And I am going to ask Diffit, I want it to take Act 2, Scene 2 from Romeo and Juliet and place it into more modern day language for ninth graders. Okay, so in ELA class, lots of people teach Romeo and Juliet as a work within their classrooms that they teach. So this is going to be a nonfiction, well, it's a fiction source here. So I'm going to switch it from nonfiction to fiction. And I'm going to tell it that I want it to align to ELA standards, which is then going to allow me to locate, and I know David will show some standard stuff here too, but it's just a great that you're able to do this from right within these features here. And I'm going to use one here about figures of speech. Because Shakespeare uses a lot of different types of figures of speech within there, and I'm going to set that to the standard. You'll see that it already is there for ninth graders and in English, so I'm going to generate and see what it pulls together here for me. And so I'll give it a minute here as it loads up. And as it does, it gives you some tips of other things that you can do with it here. So it gives me an image here, and I can, but one of the really neat things that it also does here is it allows you to click on some different links here to learn more about where some of these different things come from, or where their sources of information that it uses is going to be based upon. Okay, so here we are with what it creates here for us, and it begins with an adapted reading passage here that goes along with it. I do have the ability to edit right from within here or copy it and paste it to another document if I would like to. And so what you're going to notice here is that it obviously condensed it and made it much shorter during part of this. And it does use some of the kind of classic language like Juliet's, on the balcony saying, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Deny thy family and refuse thy name. But yet it kind of also talks about a little bit more modernly, like, hey, I would give up everything for you. Let's run away. Let's leave this feuding behind and let's do our own thing. Juliet talks about, I can't bear to be without you. How can we escape this rivalry that our families have? So it really kind of condenses it down a lot of that language that Shakespeare had used and makes it a little bit more accessible here for a ninth grade audience, especially some of those students that are going to struggle. You're going to see that it's also going to give you a little bit of a summary, and as well as some vocabulary words that get embedded into here as well. There is an AI tool, the add vocab, if you want to put different words in here than what come up in the initial one, as well as multiple choice activities or questions here to assess that student learning, and gives you some short answer or open-ended prompts as well. And remember, the standard that I tied it to had to deal with some of that figurative language, and it actually cites it right here with the questions, how it's aligning to those different standards. But one of the things that I like best here about what Diffit does is if I click on this button right here, Get Student Activities, it's going to open up all sorts of different types of templates or documents that I can access that have this content already in it. right? So some of these are going to be available for free this month, while others are just going to always be free. And some, you might have to have the paid subscription service to Diffit to be able to use. So I'm going to choose this one right here because it looks kind of fun. Is this vocabulary choice board. So you can see here using those vocabulary words that it pulled out, I can give students here a choice board of an activity, whether it be creating flashcards or writing a speech that goes along with the content that I had provided with it. And if I like this one, and I was on my premium plan like I was before, I could get this activity. But if I am not, what's to stop me from taking some of this content right here and copying and pasting it into a different area? Another activity that might be kind of a fun one to take a look at could be this printable document here one, based upon these different characteristics that are there. So maybe I want to include the reading level. Maybe I don't need to see multiple choice questions, but I'm going to choose to instead have the short answer questions and see what it generates here. And I get the choice of how do I want to share that activity. And I'm just going to choose to open it here as a Google Doc because maybe I'm still going to do a little bit of work on tweaking it. So here is then a document that it creates for me. And again, if I don't like the wording in it, it's all changeable before I send it out to students in whatever fashion that I choose to do so. But I love the templates that it creates right from these student activities and these resources. Just great tools that can definitely share teachers just a ton of time. And what I would really recommend is really diving in and exploring what some of those tools are and what options you have available to you.
All right. So Jeremy was able to show the literally anything tab and some of the things that you can do there. But I think what you're going to find with, what Jeremy was doing and then what I'll do as well is that one of the key features of Diffit is just the ability to generate these resources. And I think that's kind of their niche that they have, is that they're generating resources off of whatever topic that you want to put in. And so, I think that they do a really nice job of streamlining everything to be able to just input what it is that you want. Granted, like Jeremy had mentioned, he's doing with the non-premium version, the free version, you're not going to get some of the things that you would with the premium. And we've seen that quite a bit with the different AI tools that we've covered. And it tends to be some of the like higher quality of life things, like the alignment to standards. I still have the premium version. So what I'll actually do is show how you can align the standards, but I won't do it from the literally anything part since we just saw some of that. But the concept still remains the same. It's just that what the initial information that you're giving it is just going to be different. Whereas like Jeremy had put in a specific topic, in these two, we're actually inputting one of those items. So, whether that's an article or video or in text. So I had brought up some science tabs that you can see at the top of my screen. And so we're going to use that as our jumping off point for how to get some resources on those. So with the second tab where you have an article or a video, right, you can take and you could paste in the URL to either of those things. So like if you had, this DNA article or website from Britannica, we would just copy that and then we would paste it here and then still go through all the same process that Jeremy had gone through with whatever your expectation of Diffit using that resource to create a number of other resources that then you as a teacher can use that would, your main website that you're using could still be like central to the unit. And then everything that Diffit builds is going to be built around that main focus point. So like here, if I put in that Britannica website, what I would do with the premium version is I would go to my align to standards and then click on science. And then what I like, and you'll notice right away that Minnesota came up because I had already been in here and was using Minnesota as my basis for standards. But you can see, I mean, you could choose any of the state standards. Obviously for me, it makes sense to do Minnesota, and then I can choose my grade as well. Now I'm going to try this real quick. So if we have, if we search for DNA within our standards here, we can see where those particular standards are going to come up. And so if I just select explain the relationships among DNA, genes, and chromosomes from our standard 9.4.3.1.1 in life science, I can choose that. All right. So you can, when you do have your standards, you can select your standard here from whichever one makes the most sense, and then set the standard. And that's going to pull in for you and set it right here so that it knows that the resources should be related to this URL for that article, and then that standard correlates to that, so that when it does produce the resources, that's what your focus of all the resources are. If you want to do some differentiation because of Diffit, that's kind of their other main focus is so providing the resources, but then also being able to differentiate for different students, depending on how you're approaching this. If it's a broad group, so if you have, if you're thinking of the vast majority of your class and maybe they are at that reading level of 9th grade, you can produce the resources. But then I think one thing to keep in mind is that you can come back and regenerate this for if you have, say, a 9th grade student, but they read at a 6th grade level, so that whatever resources that you're differentiating for that particular student, you could set that up here and generate the resources. For this one though, I'm just going to stick to 9th grade, and then I'm going to generate the resources off of this. And then it's going to follow that same formula that when you saw Jeremy doing his from literally everything, all of that's still going to apply. It's just that what we're doing instead is we're actually asking of it to pull with the article in mind that we pasted into the prompt there. And so then you're going to get a lot of your same things. So this would be very similar to what was already shown on Jeremy's side of things, where you have a variety of options for what you can pull in, the ability to edit any of those, to copy them, to add additional prompts, pull in standards. Any of those things you're able to do here. And then you still have like your get student activities, which is where Jeremy had gone before, and then selecting what it is that you would like, whatever fits with your unit. You can print and save as a PDF if you want to. And then obviously another great feature about this is the Google tie-in. So being able to do like a Google Forms quiz off of what was produced by Diffit. All these are pretty widespread options that you can do. It's very versatile in that, and you can see even under each category you have. So like if we're looking at just vocabulary, for example, you have a number of resources just under that section alone. And so you could utilize any of these that would help bolster your unit that you're doing with your students. And so that same concept, just doing it with that source inputted into the prompt. You still have like your translate here if you want to, if you have some students that say are Spanish speaking students, you could translate that for them. And then we can take that same thing and let's say that rather than doing an article, we want to do it from a video. So everything would remain the same. We would still do like our science standard here. and I'll search again for that, grab that standard, and then rather than putting in the Britannica URL, we would actually go to the YouTube link, and we would paste that in there so that the contents of that can be read by Diffit, and then we can generate resources related to that. So I like that a lot because there's maybe times where you would like to play a video in class and the information is great, but especially with YouTube videos, there's not, like written curriculum for it or ready resources for those type of things. And so with this, you're able to do that, and it'll create a slideshow for you here, and then you can go down and you still have all those things that tie into it. And again, going to the student activities and pulling in things that are related to that. And I think another thing to point out is that you could pair all these things. So like if you use the Britannica article and you use the YouTube video and you create different pieces of or different resources off of them, and then mesh that together for your entire unit, you can utilize both of them. And so that's going to be where you have your second tab. So the article, video URL, and just playing around with some of the different things that are available there, I think is great. And there's plenty of resources at your disposal. The third one, the final tab, is any text or excerpt. So where I think this really shines is when you are specifically looking at articles and you really have it in mind to change the reading level of the document. Because so many times, like particularly with, when you're working with students and you have them go to like a research website or anything like that, it's kind of like however the website has written the article, that level is what it's going to be at. And so while the information is great and you have the ability to access things like this, the obvious downside is not being able to share it in such a way where you can modify the reading level for students that are in your classroom. So what I did is actually, you could do this two ways. You could upload a PDF. So if you have like a library of resources, or if you have curriculum you've used in the past, the ability to upload a PDF is great. And you can still do this same exact thing, or you can use like a website. So this one is just from Ducksters. They do a number of different content areas, but let's say we want to grab this here. We're going to take this text and copy it and then paste it into this area. And then from there, whatever the text is that you're inputting, you would just go to your approximate reading level and then choose for that student, or it could even be your entire class, because if you have something that you feel is a really good piece of information from a website or from an article, but you think that the language is just too high for all of your students, you could use this process to bring it all down so that if you read it together, or if the students are working together to read it, you can try to modify the language in it so that it's more understandable, and still be able to utilize that resource. And then same thing, it's just going to create this huge number of resources off the initial request, and then you have your student activities. So everything pretty much flows the same exact way. It's just, what are you trying to input, and what are you trying to build resources off of, and what's your end goal for your unit, and all the things that you want to include. So really great stuff from Diffit, and a lot of different versatile things you can do. So I think it's a great tool, and I think you should definitely try it out.
Right. And so now we've looked a little bit here at the two different types of way to access Diffit, whether through the free or whether through the paid premium. And if you go to the Diffit website here, you can see where there's options to be able to get a quote. It is kind of based upon the size of your school, and whether or not you can do a trial period or not. You would just have to reach out to get the quote from them to find those things. There's also a nice handy chart here where you can see what are some of the things that you get when you choose to do it on the free versus the premium. So like when I looked at Romeo and Juliet, I was getting much more of a narrowed limit of the number of words that it would put into the reading that it gave me versus if I would have gone into the premium account. But you can see that there are still many things that teachers are going to be able to do for free while on that particular account. And again, like, hey, I could have, just like entered in shorter parts and just kind of copied and pasted those shorter parts and put it all together, or do it all at once within the premium version. So check that out if that's something that you think you or your district would be interested in purchasing, and you can get a quote for what it would be for your particular school. So thanks once again for tuning into the Integrate This podcast. We hope you picked up some valuable insights for how to use Diffit to help make your classroom life much more effective and efficient. Be sure to check the links in this that you will find in the show description to some of the resources that we took a look at today. Special thanks to co-host David Berner, and of course to all of you, our viewers, for joining us in this digital exploration. I'm Jeremy Mikla. Until next time, keep integrating, innovating, and shaping the future of education. Happy teaching.
And don't forget to subscribe to our Integrate This YouTube channel and follow us on X and Instagram for the latest tutorials and discussions in EdTech. Next week, we will reveal the winner of our draft, me, and explore another EdTech tip, tool, or trick.
So David and I both have some amazing conference opportunities happening this summer, especially if you're in the Minnesota area. I help to put on a conference in East Central Minnesota called ECMECC. It is taking place August 6th in Princeton, Minnesota. And David is hosting the Southwest, West Central, kind of you're in that more southern and western part of the state, called EdTech Connect. And it is on August 8th in Worthington, Minnesota. We'll put the links to the registration in this video, or if you would consider presenting at either one of those, that link will be there for you also. So we look forward to connecting with you, and we'll see you next time.